Yo, what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Zeppelin and today we are finally making a video talking about the Muse Drones album, giving it its final review, debating where it ranks in terms of other Muse albums, and answering the question that we were trying to answer with all the drone songs reactions that we have done on the last few months on this channel, in that, has the album aged poorly? So if this is the first video you have seen on the channel when it comes to just anything I've done or Muse reactions or anything to do with the Drones album, pretty much what we've done is that we reacted to all the songs from the Drones album, which you can all find on my channel. And as I just said there in the intro, the reason that we were doing this and going back to this album is that there were certain claims being put out there that the album had actually aged rather poorly, and I saw, just from my memory of the album, I saw things in there that made me understand why people thought that. So I thought it would be an interesting journey to go on in this channel, to go back and review these songs and then answer the question at the very end. I am quite late into making this video, but for those of you who do not know, I had COVID. I was fine for 3 days after having it, and then I came down with a chest infection because my immune system was a bit weaker. So I've had 3 weeks of just being ill. So that is why it's taken me kind of a long time to get that finished and then actually get this video put up. I'm not actually quite sure what day this is going out, so it's probably going to be a while since I made the last Muse reaction. But enough of the waffling. We don't want this to be a very long video. Well, 10 minutes, obviously 10 minutes is the way to go for people on my channel size. But to answer the question of whether or not the album is aged poorly, I am going to first go back and talk quickly just about a couple of the songs that were on the album. And one thing to keep in mind is that in terms of where this album would rank for me personally among other albums from different bands, is still quite high. It would be on the lower tier of a Muse album. Like, I think every Muse fan can agree it's not in the top 4. Alright, you've definitely got your top 3 of albums 2, 3, and 4, right? Origin of Symmetry, oh god, Absolution, that's the name of the third one, right? Oh god, if I don't remember that, people are going to kill me. And Black Holes and Revelations, you know, they're 3 untouchables. And then when it comes to the fourth, I'm sure a lot of old school fans would say the first album. I'd say a lot of people might actually say The Second Law, and yeah, some people would probably say The Resistance. I don't think anyone's saying Simulation Theory, but if you were actually to take in albums that aren't studio ones, then the Hullabaloo soundtrack would probably actually rank as the 4th best, because there are some very cool B-sides on there. And for those of you actually who might be fans of Muse and haven't looked into their B-sides, I highly recommend you do it. They've got some absolutely amazing B-sides, and the Hullabaloo soundtrack is a great way, or the Hullabaloo album is a great way to get into those B-sides and then just go looking for those B-sides on YouTube on your own time. Trust me, you won't regret it. There's some experimental stuff, but there's also some very good stuff. Some of their heaviest stuff is B-sides. Make sure to go check it out. But to go back to this Drones album, it has some very poor songs in my opinion. One in particular, of course, if you watch the reactions, you know which one I mean by that one in particular. But it does have some great songs. The triad of songs in, what is it? Is it Mercy, Reapers, and The Handler is quite good. And even if you wanted to take Mercy out of that, you could maybe say in terms of a trio, you've got Reaper, The Handler, and Defector. Defector, I think, is one that's not actually that popular among Muse fans, but it's one that has certainly grown on me. And of course, being sort of a minor, I don't even want to see the C word. Say it, who cares? YouTube ban if you want. Conspiracy theorist. I know that YouTube can be weird at recommending when you say words like that, so I'm not going to say it too much. Their algorithms know not to push things like that when people say them. But how Defectors plays into that side of me in terms of what it talks about with JFK and all that at the beginning, it's definitely a song that has grown on me, and that trio of songs definitely makes the album. And also Dead Inside. Now, while I did say on my album or song reactions that I believe Dead Inside was very poorly placed on the album, it should not have been first. Psycho should have been first. I definitely feel like it's a very good song, and it almost feels like it just should have been released as a single. Yeah, more so as a single than in the album, but I don't think Muse really do that. They don't really do singles. Everything they release is is towards an album. It's not, they don't really release anything for EPs anymore. Every single song that's put out is an album song. So it's not surprising it ended up on the album, but it is surprising it ended up where it did on the track list. It feels like a bit of a poor placement. I'd either put it somewhere maybe towards the end, or I'd have put it somewhere in and around Mercy. The placement at the very beginning just feels weird, and it definitely starts the album off in a disjointed place. It hurts the pacing of the album quite badly, I think, in the beginning. Actually, this album, come to think of it, has one of their best songs that they've released, I think, in a long time, in Reapers, and then the riff that comes after Reapers. I genuinely think Reapers is a great song, and then The Handler is a very good song. Those are definitely the two that I would say, even though I go through phases, and even now in the phase I'd say I'd like Dead Inside more. I think, pulling back, objectively speaking, I would have to say that Reapers is kind of up there on their top tier catalogue from all albums, and I think it's, in terms of the last 3 albums that they've released, it's the best singular song to come out, even though some people would argue that the Drones album is the worst album to come out in their last 3 albums, which I don't agree. I think even though Simulation Theory won't age as poorly, I think there's just some really poor songs in there that make it just a slightly worse than Drones. But again, I still enjoy these albums. Please keep that in mind when I'm saying if something is bad or aged poorly. It's in the context of Muse, a band who I love very much, and I'm trying to be objective about it. But when I say I hate something from them, that could still be like I'd listen to it on the radio if it came on over anything else that plays on the radio. You know, that's the standards we're working within here. So if we were actually trying to rank this among other Muse albums, just before I get into answering the final question of whether or not it's aged poorly, as I said, it's definitely not in the top 3. It definitely wouldn't even make my top 4. I'd say album 1 would be in number 4 myself, but actually, no, maybe The Second Law. The Second Law is an album that has definitely grown on me over time. I do feel like that would be number 4, even though I really didn't like it when I first got into Muse around 2014, 13, around that time. It's one that has definitely grown on me. The Resistance, I know, is an album that was kind of a sleeper hit with some fans, and a lot of people really like it, but I'm just not a big fan of the songs in that album at all. I'd actually say that's an album that done the opposite of the Second Law. I would have preferred it to the Second Law, and then it's dipped for me over time. I really do like the 3 ending songs on the album, the sort of symphony thing, but overall, I'm just, the songs in the album don't really hit for me. Again, I still like them. This is all within the context of Muse. They're my favorite band. I love them, but it definitely has dropped down for me. So what have we left with then? So we've done we got albums 2, 3, and 4 are in no particular order in the top 3. 4 is probably The Second Law. So then you've got 5, 6, 7, and 8, which would be album 1, Resistance, Drones, and Simulation Theory. It's interesting because part of me wants to put Simulation Theory at the bottom, and I actually think I will put it at the bottom, but I would listen to Simulation Theory more now simply because it's newer. It's the newest one with songs I've heard the least of from them in comparison to everything else, so naturally I'd listen to it more. But I think if I was to give it another 3 years or even a year until the next album comes out, I could probably see Simulation Theory unfortunately being at the bottom of the barrel. Actually, funnily enough, one of the very first last videos I made on my previous channel, it's privated now, I done a review of Simulation Theory, and I talked about how much in Simulation Theory I actually really liked the theme of the album and the the synthwave cyberpunk aesthetic and music. It was something that I really liked. It's always been my favorite style of aesthetic. You can even tell by maybe my channel designs. Usually, if you ever see me live on Twitch, even the colors, I've got a pink and green. I like my kind of neon-esque cyberpunk synthwave stuff. And then when I heard Muse were going to be doing music in that place, I was really excited. However, I feel like they kept their song sounding a little too Muse. They didn't have enough synthwave type of stuff, and they didn't delve deep enough into that style of music, so they were left in this weird middle ground where I think a hardcore Muse fan isn't going to be happy, and a synthwave cyberpunk 80s retro style music fan isn't going to be happy with the music. For the most part, there's definitely good ones in there, but I definitely feel like for that reason that album has to rank bottom. And when it comes now to albums, I think 1 and 5 and 7. 1, I think, is just one that is very of its era, and for that reason, that's why it's lower, but I think it's also for that reason why it can't be the bottom. It has a couple of great songs in there. It's where they started. It's when his voice was, Matt Bellamy's voice was arguably at its peak at the very beginning. I would definitely place that album third worst, so, or no, fourth worst. I'm getting all confused with this list, but I think it's a battle for the bottom 2 now between Drones and the Resistance for me. And to be honest, I think I probably have to put Drones as the second worst Muse album, purely because I think there's more diverse listening in the Resistance. The Resistance has some easier to like songs than it has some symphonic songs. It's just, I think, a more well-rounded listen where you can always find a couple of songs on that you like, whereas Drones is very regimented in its sound. The only things that really does experimental with the sound would arguably be Dead Inside, which I don't think it is, and then the end with the Globalist and Drones, the Gregorian chant song at the very end. Everything else is very streamlined in its rock, and it has, again, like Revolt, probably their worst song ever in my opinion. So with that being said, it's time to answer if the album has aged poorly, and that can kind of be a different question as to how low the album ranks, but I suppose in some way you can judge it by, well, where would I have ranked this album then when it came out versus what I would rank it now, and I can 100% say when it came out I would have ranked it higher. I definitely see why people think the album has aged poorly, and I think that again comes back to the fact that it's so regimented in doing the one thing, keeping the one sound, focusing on the one topic. I actually ran into someone before who's a fan of Muse, and they said that, and I don't fully agree with this statement, but I can understand why people think it, is that Drones is just the same, is just singing about the same thing over and over again. Like, there's not much story, there's not much progression, it's just the kind of singing about the same issue in different ways on and on for a lot of it. And I actually kind of get why people think that. Again, I don't think it fully, but it gave me an interesting perspective, to say the least. So, in conclusion, give you your conclusive answer, so you don't get annoyed at me for waffling. Do I think the Muse Drones album has aged poorly? Yes. Do I think it's one of their worst albums? Yes. Do I think it's a bad album? No. If I had to sit and give this album a rating, it would be between a 7.5 and an 8. Maybe a 7 if I was being really harsh, but I'm a Muse fan here, so I'm going to put it a little higher. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the kind of the album where I was really beginning to get devoted to Muse. These vinyls, these red vinyls here, are Drones album vinyls. The 2 pictures down here are Drones, of course, Simulation Theory. Up these 2 are Drones. I had the actual Drones big thing stuck up there, but for the life of me, I couldn't get it to stick. It kept falling down. And then that poster right there is what I got in Dublin from the Muse Drones World Tour. So Drones is the album where I really dived head on into Muse, and it's something I will always sort of treasure in my heart as being a really cool era. Again, they were my first ever concert when I went to see them when I was 16, 17, in 2016, I believe. So it's something I'll always hold dear, but I think, just trying to be objective, I see why people think the album has aged poorly. And yeah, I'd actually say, if you really wanted to get into Muse, if I was trying to say to someone if they liked rock and they wanted to get into Muse, I would point them to 1 or 2 songs from the Drones album. I'd mainly want to keep them on albums 2, 3, and 4. If someone wasn't as much of a rock fan, I'd say go Second Law or Simulation Theory a million% of the way, and then maybe Black Holes and Revelations. And then if you're liking them, go albums 2 and 3. But no, there's a song or 2 from Drones I'd recommend as well, and while I may seem quite critical of it now, it definitely isn't an album that's all bad, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed re-listening to it, you know. I 100% enjoyed re-listening to it, this journey that I went on with you guys on this channel, listening to it, and I don't see myself listening to the full album, sitting listening to it again, which again could be another inkling to the idea that it's aged poorly, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Even doing the bad songs, I enjoyed it. So thank you for coming on this journey with me. If you did like the video, make sure to please leave a like, make sure to leave a comment, let me know what you think of my reaction to this, my review, the album in general. Just give me your thoughts. I want to know. Let me know. I do, even though I might not reply to everything, because I'm alright for replying, but unless it's a direct question or something I feel like I can add, I don't reply, but I do read everything. So do make sure to leave a comment to let me know. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. I will do more Muse stuff in the future. I might not do any real live reactions purely because I've seen them all, but maybe in the context of reviewing albums and trying to maybe re-rank them in future, I would 100% be down to do more Muse on this channel. And when the new album comes out, I'll definitely be doing that on this channel. You can be assured of that. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.